We'd like to welcome everybody to local government. We would like to establish a quorum. And before we do that, briefly, the following members have been appointed to serve on the committee. Assemblymember Paul Fong will fill the Democrat vacancy, and Mr. Torlakson will be serving on behalf of or in place of Mrs. Caballero. So if we could please establish the quorum, please call the roll.
Smythe.
Here.
Smythe here. Torlakson. Arambula. Here. Arambula here. Bradford. Here. Bradford here. Davis. Knight. Here. Knight here. Logue. Here. Logue here. Solorio. Fong.
All right, thank you very much. First, we'll start with Mr. Bell. Item number 12, AB 2613.
Mr. Chairman, members, AB 2613 relates to local government fines and penalties. Existing law does not allow local agencies to make unpaid administrative fines for property-related code violations of special assessments against property. As a result, local agencies are forced to use expensive and time-consuming civil litigation processes to obtain a judgment lien against the violator and attempt to collect the lien. Moreover, the law does not specifically authorize counties to use hearing officers to hear and decide issues regarding ordinance violations and the imposition of administrative fees and penalties. This law, AB 2177 or 2613, would allow local governments to make their code enforcement processes more efficient and effective by authorizing them to make unpaid administrative fines for property code violations, a special assessment against the property. Further, this bill would permit local governments to streamline their code enforcement processes by combining their administrative fines and nuisance abatement processes, thus allowing them to use a more flexible and cost-effective process for the utilization of hearing officers. This bill is sponsored by the County of Santa Clara, and I request your aye vote. Thank you. We have witnesses, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Witnesses in support, please.
Hi, I'm Lizanne Reynolds. I'm Deputy County Counsel for Santa Clara County, and I've been involved with code enforcement for many years at the county, and we've tried to do the best we can to streamline and make our code enforcement processes more efficient because we have a lot of violations. We have very few staff dedicated to those violations, and this bill is another tool to help streamline that. We already do have, pursuant to state law, the ability to impose administrative fines and penalties. The problem is once we impose those, the only way to collect them is to go into civil court, get a judgment lien, actually attach the person's property, get their property sold, and then try to recover our money. That's very expensive and time-consuming for us to do, and it's probably not the best way to recover those fines and penalties to have to actually sell someone's property. So if we are able to impose these fines and penalties as a special assessment against the property, it just goes to them as part of their tax bill, and it's a lot easier for us to do because we don't have to go into court and utilize all those resources to enforce a judgment lien.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Questions from the committee? All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Bell, if you'd like to close.
Urge that I vote, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead and please call the roll.
Motion is due pass. Smythe?
No.
Smythe, no. Torlakson? Aye. Torlakson, aye. Arambula? Bradford? Aye. Bradford, aye. Davis? Knight? No. Knight, no. Logue? No. Logue, no. Solorio? Fong? Solorio, aye.
Your bill is on call. Needs 2 more votes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Nastandi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. AB 2642, this measure will authorize a joint powers agreement between the University of California and the City of Riverside to form an infrastructure finance district for the purpose of funding for medical school facilities if they choose to pursue this avenue of funding. Once formed, the JPA, the Infrastructure Finance District, would have to go to the voters for approval and must receive a 2/3 vote. University of California is a huge economic engine in my district and the surrounding region. It is the second largest employer in the city of Riverside. It's been more than 40 years since a medical school was built in California. The UC Regents approved the establishment of the School of Medicine at UC Riverside in 2008. UCR is forecasting a physician shortfall as high as 53% by 2015 in the Inland Empire. To minimize the national shortage of doctors, the Association of American Medical Colleges has called for a 30% expansion in medical school enrollments. The University of California asked the governor to include $10 million in his budget for the UC School of Medicine, and $10 million is startup funds matched by Kaiser, which was to be used for the development of academic programs and the support of salaries for the initial medical school staff and facility. While the university will continue to ask for state funding, they are also pursuing other options, including federal dollars, but AB 2642 will be another tool in an effort to get the school built. And if I may have witnesses testify, Brett Michelin from AMA.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Brett Michelin with the California Medical Association. This I think my first time in 5 years or something before local government. So it's yeah, few different faces around here.
I know it's a little intimidating, so try not to choke.
Yeah. Okay. CMA is supporting this bill. As the Assemblyman mentioned, we are facing an extreme shortage of physicians in the state of California. Virtually the entire state is defined as a health professional shortage area. You all have been faced with several different measures to try and address this shortage, but the only true answer is to actually develop more physicians, train more physicians. That means opening the medical school at UC Riverside, and UC Merced is also working in that direction, and to bring more residency slots into the state. We believe that this is an important first step, and it is another tool for UC Riverside to get the medical school open and get California on pace to start training and bringing new physicians to California. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Mr. Chair and members, I'm from University of California, Karen French, and we are very supportive of any efforts to help fund the capital costs of the proposed medical school. We especially appreciate the author's willingness to assist UC in exploring financing options. Thank you.
Okay, we got a motion, a second. Good. Both sides.
Mr. Chair, members, Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building Construction Trades Council, and strong support. Thank you.
Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? We do have a motion and a second. Mr. Standy? Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Ruxin.
Appreciate Mr. Standy's work, the Assembly members' work. This is a long sought after dream and need that's been wanting to be filled for a long time in the region. As I've worked with you and worked in that community for a long time, this will be a major impetus towards the goal of getting the full center there, the full hospital.
Well, thank you. And the reason we're doing this also is we know state funding is tough to come by, obviously, so we're giving a tool really to the local community there. If they want to step forward and put up their money, we're hoping that will be attractive to the state to match some funding. So, and also, Mr. Chair, if I may mention, I'm going to ask to amend it as it goes to approach. We didn't get them in time to include the County of Riverside as part of the JPA as well.
Correct.
So
that's fine. We'll take that as your close.
yes, sir. Thank you.
Go ahead. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Motion is due pass to the Committee on Appropriations. Smythe?
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Torlakson? Torlakson, aye. Arambula? Bradford? Bradford, aye. Davis? Knight? Knight, aye. Logue? Logue, aye. Solorio? Solorio, aye. Fong?
That bill is out. Thank you. And before we have our next presenter, if we could I'll take a motion on the consent calendar. Motion by Mr. Torlakson, second by Mr. Bradford. Consent calendar consists of item number 2, AB 1962 by Mr. Chesbro, and item number 3, AB 1965 by Ms. Yamada. Please call the roll.
Smythe?
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Torlakson? Torlakson, aye. Arambula? Bradford? Bradford, aye. Davis? Knight? Knight, aye. Logue? Logue, aye. Solorio? Solorio, aye. Fong?
Consent calendar is out. Our next presenter will be Ms. Hayashi. Item number 10, AB 2509.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Mr. Chair and members, thank you. AB 2509 adds the promotion. Sorry, that wasn't me. It was my staff. Yeah, it was Ross.
Can you get a new one?
Promotion
Can you have someone else come up?
What's that? Economic development and job creation to the list of public benefits and transit village developments. And it includes higher education institutions within local government transit development plan. The bill adds educational facility to the list of characteristics that a city or county may use to create a transit village plan. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Second. All right, we have motion and second. Witnesses in support?
Chair Member Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. Apologize. Just learned about this bill. We think it's a great bill, adds job creation, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Question. I just have a quick question. I know that are there any changes that you took to address from the governor's veto message from last year? I know you had a similar bill. I just there's anything you can address to so it doesn't have the same fate, if you will, at the year.
We did change the bill to add the job creation component to the bill. It's not to disrespect the governor's interpretation that this can be accommodated under existing law. I would simply argue in the same lines that if this is what it's necessary to give local agencies the comfort they need to pursue this, not only for the benefit of transit development, but also for job creation, which is the new addition to the bill, then maybe we can persuade him to sign the bill and give those agencies the comfort that they need to go forward.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, would you like to close?
I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. I believe we have a motion in a second already. Go ahead and please call the roll.
The motion is due pass. Smythe?
No.
Smythe, no. Torlakson? Arambula? Bradford? Aye. Bradford, aye. Davis? Aye. Davis, aye. Knight? Knight, no. Logue? Logue, no. Solorio? Solorio, aye. Fong?
Your bill needs 2 more votes. It's on call. Thank you. Mr. Bradford, if you would like to present on behalf of Mr. Tirico, we are.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I'm presenting AB 2043 on behalf of Mr. Tirico. AB 2043 equips local government with one more tool to help combat foreclosures in their community. Even with the recent efforts by the federal government and the gradual improvement of the housing market, home foreclosure continues to plague California. Californians hold the 4th highest foreclosure rate in the nation, and 1 out of every 62 homes are in the foreclosure. It is important that we continue to be engaged and remain creative in our efforts to further slow this foreclosure tide and keep homeowners in their home. AB 2043 is such an effort. AB 2043 allows the use of redevelopment funds to be offered as a soft second loans to homeowners to help lower their costs and encourage lenders to reduce the principal owed on the original home loan. The homeowners would not be required to make monthly payments on this public second loan and will only need to pay it off upon the refinancing and selling of the home. It is important to note that these public second loans would only be authorized if the lender agrees to reduce the principal of the first loan so that the loan-to-value ratio is equal to or below 110%. Additionally, these public loans would be limited only to low to moderate income borrowers of homeowners occupying their homes. AB 2043 helps homeowners keep their homes, encourage banks to do their part, and protects communities from the economic and social impacts that occur from foreclosures. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Are there witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? I'm sure we have a ton of questions for Mr. Bradford on this bill, but we'll save them. Any questions for Mr. Bradford?
From Mr. Tirico.
Keeping in mind that, yeah, you can take them down. All right, seeing none, is there a motion on the bill? Move the bill.
I'll second it.
There you go. Very good. Would you like to close?
I just respectfully ask for your aye vote. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. Go ahead and please call the roll.
The motion is do pass to be referred to the Committee on Appropriations. Smythe?
Nope.
Smythe, no. Torlakson? Arambula? Bradford?
Yes.
Bradford, aye. Davis?
Aye.
Davis, aye. Knight? No. Knight, no. Logue? Logue, no. Solorio? Solorio, aye. Fong? Fong, aye.
All right, that bill is on call. One vote short. Okay. I do believe Ms. Caballero has a bill, but she is unable to attend. I believe there is staff in the room. Come on up. And this is Assembly Bill 2508, item number 9.
Members of the committee, I'm here today to present AB 2508 on behalf of Assemblymember Caballero, who unfortunately cannot be here today. Really quickly, Assembly Bill 2508 would allow a local jurisdiction to petition the Department of Housing and Community Development for a jurisdiction reclassification if its current classification pursuant to population definitions known as the Mullen densities jeopardizes its ability to meet threshold requirements for the infill infrastructure grant program. Rural jurisdictions have had some issues with the usage of Mullen densities determining the baseline density requirements for Prop 1C programs. A very quick example of that is the city of Salinas, which was classified as a metropolitan jurisdiction, meaning that it would have to develop at a minimum density of 30 units per acre. But obviously Salinas is the city of Salinas feels that it is not appropriately categorized as a metropolitan jurisdiction because of its rural location and that it lacks the overall infrastructure to develop that high. So, okay.
A motion and a second. Keep in mind it is from both sides. So why don't we go into witnesses and support?
In light of support on both sides, the League of California Cities in support.
Thank you.
On behalf of Eric Arias, on behalf of the City of Salinas, in support.
Thank you.
Kiana Best, California State Association of Counties, in support.
Thank you. Any witnesses in opposition? Any questions for the author? Well,
thank you.
Is this your first bill?
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Bring them on.
We'll just hold this bill for a while, and we'll think about that.
I think we need to have
Don't
the
get
member
too
come
cocky.
back. I have some questions for
yeah.
them.
Well, out of respect for the author, we'll go ahead and.
Thank you, sir.
We got a motion and a second. Go ahead and please call the roll.
The motion is do pass. Smythe?
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Torlakson? Arambula? Arambula, aye. Bradford? Aye. Bradford, aye. Davis? Aye. Davis, aye. Knight? Knight, aye. Logue? Logue, aye. Solorio? Solorio, aye. Fong? Fong, aye.
Thank you.
That bill is out. Thank you. Mr. Arambula, if you're ready, we'd love to keep things moving.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. It's my pleasure to present Assembly Bill 2184 before you today. This is an update of the Construction Cost Accounting Act. And it's an update by incorporating electronic communications, in other words, email or fax, into the trade journal notice requirement, thereby and also reducing the notice period from 30 days to 15 days. As is noted in the committee analysis, the Construction Cost Accounting Act is voluntary for public agencies to join. If a public agency participates, however, it has to follow specified procedures to ensure transparency and efficiency. In exchange, the agency may use bidding rules that are generally more flexible than otherwise allowed. However, for projects over $125,000, the required formal bidding process includes a notice being placed in a trade journal publication for 30 days. This bill reduces that notice to 15 days and requires that the notice be sent to the trade journal using modern electronic communications, specifically email and fax. This issue came to my attention through the Fresno Flood Control District, which has cited the 30-day notice as an impediment to its continued participation in the Accounting Act. My office, in speaking with both the Flood District and representatives of the contracting community, developed the language in this bill. The intention is to keep the Accounting Act attractive and flexible for public agencies while simultaneously ensuring transparency for public project bidding. Such transparency, I believe, serves the interests of the agencies as well as the public and the contracting community. With me today are representatives from the Flood Control District and I believe from the contracting community.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Yes, Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Alan Hoffman. I am with the Fresno Flood Control District. We are a special agency that coordinates a lot of projects with our local agencies, and we found it has become burdensome for us to participate and comply with their time frames using a 30-day notice. And so we are supporting this bill and ask for your aye votes today.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Questions from the committee? Mr. Ambula.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill makes an adjustment to a good program, and I would ask for your approval.
Thank you very much. Please call the roll.
The motion is do pass. Smythe?
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Torlixon? Arambula?
Aye.
Arambula, aye. Bradford? Aye. Bradford, aye. Davis? Aye. Davis, aye. Knight? Knight, aye. Logue? Logue, aye. Solorio? Solorio, aye. Fong? Fong, aye.
Thank you very much, members. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fuentes, you're up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. I'm presenting today on Assembly Bill 2531, which would expand the statutory definition of redevelopment to place a greater emphasis on attracting and retaining businesses in order to retain and enhance job opportunities. Redevelopment activities would be expanded to include the provision of direct assistance to businesses in connection with new or existing facilities that are located within redevelopment project areas for industrial or manufacturing uses, including loans, loan guarantees, and other financial assistance intended to retain or expand jobs. The bill also places an emphasis on activities that result in the reduction of greenhouse gases, increased use of clean, renewable, or alternative energy, increasing energy efficiency, greater use of efficient construction methods, reduced building operation costs through increased efficiency, and the provision of job training, job placement, and apprenticeship programs. Existing authority to make commercial rehabilitation loans would be expanded to include providing financial guarantees or other financial assistance to owners or tenants in a redevelopment project area in order to retain or expand employment in the project area and increase energy efficiency of the buildings in the project area. This bill focuses on the key purpose of economic development, which is to strengthen our communities and make them more livable by providing residents with more job opportunities. Members, this bill will help align economic development and redevelopment goals and thus provide local redevelopment agencies with more tools to create and retain good-paying industrial and manufacturing jobs. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Hi, my name is Jenna Gulager. I'm with the Community Redevelopment Agency from the City of Los Angeles. This bill really lets redevelopment agencies align with what the state and our localities need to do, which is spend our available resources to create jobs. Right now, we can only support businesses if they're doing a physical expansion or rehabilitation to a property. But what we're finding is businesses who face a challenge in getting access to capital for business expansion, and we have vacant buildings that want those businesses to come in. What we're asking for is to be able to match up our available resources with those businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support.
Chairman, I'm John Shire. I'm the Executive Director of
California Redevelopment Association, we're strongly in support of this legislation.
Thank you.
Jobs, good for the environment.
Thank you.
Jan Carey with the League of Cities also support.
Thank you.
Paul Gonzalez on behalf.
Oh, why don't you use the mic real quick? Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, Paul Gonzalez on behalf of the cities of Lakewood and Palmdale in strong support.
Thank you. Roxanne Miller, representing the Mayor, City Council, City of San Jose. We know investment through redevelopment will enable us to not only create jobs, but reverse the exodus of manufacturing from the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, other questions from the committee? Mr. Fuentes?
Thank you for letting us present this bill. I know there was some concerns about apprenticeship programs and the expansion. The bill is intentionally designed to let local government make those choices, so it doesn't prescribe anything in particular. And with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, I believe. Go ahead and call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Committee on Appropriations. Smythe.
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Torlakson. Arambula. Bradford. Bradford, aye. Davis. Davis, aye. Knight. Knight not voting. Logue. Logue not voting. Solorio. Solorio, aye. Fong. Fong, aye. Bill's out.
The bill is out.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. Mr. Calderon. And Mr. De La Torre. And again, for those that are just coming in, just keep in mind that we are limiting two primary witnesses on both sides, and then the rest would just be the Me Too's, if you will.
Mr. Chairman,
Leader.
First of all, let me say it's a pleasure to appear for the first time before this committee with a new chair. As all of you know, last year we created approximately 70,000 jobs. We voted to overturn a court decision that was holding up about 1,800 public and private projects and 65,000 jobs. We also voted to overturn efforts to prevent a stadium from being built. Ultimately, that legislation led to a resolution, and that stadium is going forward. The state has issued about $7 billion in infrastructure bonds, creating approximately 125,000, or retaining 125,000 jobs. It isn't enough to meet the unemployment rate in California, which is higher than the national average, but it is the legislature attempting to respond to the single most important issue facing California today, and that is the creation of jobs. This bill, AB 2065, is in the same vein. Second. We have an opportunity to bring Tesla Motors, a green manufacturing plant, into the city of Downey. The last piece of the puzzle to cement that deal is encompassed in this particular bill, and that is another approximate $6 million that the city would need in order to meet concerns by Tesla. However, the city would front that money. They've already fronted $7 million out of their reserves. $6 million exhausts their reserves, and so with this bill, it would allow a extension of an existing redevelopment project area to encompass approximately 80 acres where there are no homes. All that is in this expansion would be a Kaiser Permanente, a shopping center, a Air and Space Museum, and some large sound stages that were used for filming for a number of movies. No homes are involved. We are introducing this bill to create or expand that project area by statute because there is no time. We have until January for Tesla to ultimately decide whether or not they're going to come to Downey or they're going to go somewhere else. And they have to spend the money that they got under the government's stimulus program, federal government, by that time. So what we've done is that we short-circuited the redevelopment project process, which takes approximately 24 months, and we're condensing it and providing and meeting nearly every requirement that would be met if we were going through the 24-month process, except for the referendum part of the process, and that is for obvious reasons. There are groups that might have some different agenda, like Howard Jarvis Group, that just oppose redevelopment generally. They might referendum this particular process simply because they have some other agenda relative to redevelopment. And that would kill the jobs, not because they have any stake in my community or Hector's community. So we're asking that you help us bring 5,000 jobs to Downey and the surrounding area. It's estimated there'll be 1,800 jobs that will come with the manufacturing plant and another 3,500 jobs with all the suppliers and surrounding commerce that will be generated from this project. Rarely do we as a legislature get an opportunity to have this direct input and influence in the creation of jobs. We have a chance to show that our regulatory climate, our laws, and our support of business is real, and that those are not going to be a obstruction or obstacle in bringing jobs to California, particularly at this time. Our unemployment in the district, Hector's and mine, we both represent the city of Downey and surrounding areas, is 15.66%. We need these jobs, but so does Southern California, and so I would ask for your support.
Mr. Chair, I'll just address a couple of points. Number one, the federal government, the Department of Energy, is proffering $465 million in loans to jumpstart this automobile manufacturing. If it doesn't happen in California, it's going to happen somewhere. So this is a way to get that money and apply it to production that would happen in California. In light of the loss of the NUMMI plant in the Bay Area, this is an opportunity to jumpstart, I think the phrase that was used on the previous bill, jobs and the environment. We're doing both. These are electric vehicles. They're going to produce the Model S, a 5-door, all-electric family sedan that carries up to 7 people and travels up to 300 miles per charge. A zero-emissions vehicle with target date for release set in late 2011. That is based on their paperwork that they filed with the Department of Energy. And they plan to build 20,000 of these vehicles a year. But they need to get started. They need to open up this facility. In terms of the redevelopment issues, the old Boeing plant, which is where this is happening, started before World War II. A lot of those buildings that are in this complex are 60 years old plus. And so the money is needed in order to upgrade those facilities to make it a 21st century factory. And so I think this is a wise investment. It's something that could happen on the local level, as Assemblymember Calderon mentioned, except for the time. All we are doing is expediting the process that on the natural could happen and would happen in the community of Downey. I urge your aye vote.
Now, I will also point out that the County of Los Angeles, which Mayor, I believe, submitted a letter of opposition, has, I think, we've been talking with them and working with them. I think they're comfortable with this bill moving forward, although they may be here and they can speak for themselves. But I think we have addressed many of their questions. We have here some witnesses to answer any of your questions. the city manager for Downey, and we're open for questions.
All right, if you would you like two of them to testify or just?
Only if there's questions that they're better suited to answer.
Okay, fair enough. And then are there witnesses in opposition? Mr. Wolf.
Mr. Chair, members, David Wolf here with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. And just to start with Mr. Calderon's point, we do have a stake and we do have an agenda here, and that's the millions of taxpayers in the state of California who we represent. And that is the stake, and we do believe this is a taxpayer issue, and it's worthy of our opposition. Let me just briefly delve into the reasons why. Number one, first and foremost, cities should not be in the business of picking winners and losers among private industry. Let's understand here, the city of Downey is paying for rent and site improvement to the tune of $15 million. The issue here is that we're jeopardizing taxpayer dollars by putting money up for a project that may or may not happen. Cities are facing dramatic declines in property and sales tax revenue. Cities are facing dramatic increases in unfunded pension liabilities that they can't afford. And does it make sense, members, to put at risk taxpayer dollars, again, to pick winners and losers and subsidize one industry over another, regardless of what that industry is? We do believe, and we've long held, that redevelopment and the use of tax increments should be about blight removal and, again, not subsidizing private industry. Point number two, this bill, in our view, also circumvents local control by eliminating various public processes that are involved in redevelopment plan development. Current law, as it stands right now, requires both a hearing as well as the referendum process for voters to decide whether or not they want the plan to be amended. And this bill would circumvent both of those requirements by getting rid of them. And we just believe, especially when you're talking about millions of dollars worth of debt into the future that these taxpayers are going to have to deal with, they should have the right to to do a referendum on those measures should they choose to. So for those two reasons, we'd ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses?
Ed Behrens on behalf of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. In opposition to the bill, I would note there are negotiations going on between the county and the city to address county concerns and the concerns of the city.
Right. You may. Hold on, let's make sure there's no more witnesses first. Any more witnesses in opposition? Thank you. Mr. Davis and Mr. Knight.
I have a question of the opposition, the taxpayers first. I just wanted to clarify, your opposition was that you felt that this was an investment of taxpayers' money in a venture that would not prosper. Was that correct? Or?
I'm not going to come out and say that it necessarily might not prosper, but it is a risk, yes. Especially for Tesla and the type of automobile that we're talking about here.
To your knowledge, have we ever done any similar kinds of investments in other projects or business or corporations, to your knowledge?
Honestly, to my knowledge, I can't answer that question.
So you wouldn't say that we have done something similar somewhere across the board before to reinvigorate economic development?
I'm not saying we have or haven't done something. I'm just not aware of similar examples.
That we've not done any taxpayer investments whatsoever in economic development in any areas of the state? You're not aware of any such?
Within the area of green...
In any area would be an appropriate question for me. In any area whatsoever.
There have been numerous examples of cities funding businesses with taxpayer dollars. I mean, I think one example that comes to mind is a couple of years ago, the County of Sacramento gave $1 million subsidy to an automobile dealership here in Sacramento to ensure that they didn't move away. So, yes.
Thank you very much. County of Los Angeles, are they still here? Hi, Mr. Behrens. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon.
What is the opposition of the County of Los Angeles with this particular proposal?
The opposition is basically, it's articulated very well in the committee analysis, but it addresses CEQA, the fiscal, but the fiscal consequences and so forth, on local governments and affected taxing entities. But there are
Mr. Behrens, if you could just come on down to to make it easier for you. Thank you.
There are ongoing negotiations between county staff and the city of Downey to address the county issues, so I would expect that there would be a successful resolution on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis, in our negotiations with the county, they just want to make sure that their pass-through is not impaired, that they're and we're agreeable to that. They have a letter of opposition, which I think was just knee-jerk. In other words, they saw this bill, they saw it was going to extend the redevelopment project. They're opposing every bill that does that. I think after we started talking with them, the county, I think, is feeling comfortable with what we're more comfortable. In fact, Mr. Don Kanabe has introduced a resolution to the Board of Supervisors to do away with a letter of opposition and possibly support, and I think even support this project. LA County Board of Supervisors does not want to get in the way of bringing 5,000 jobs to Los Angeles County.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
Well,
but he can't say that. Mr. Behrens can't say that.
Mr. Knight.
Yes, thank you. We had a very heated debate in housing, I believe, a week or two ago about this issue, and it was vetted out very well, and it was voted on 8-0. I think that the impact of the city of Downey and the bringing of the jobs to this area. I, too, represent a district that has 16% unemployment, and I understand the impact of that. My question is just like we did last year with the stadium, we kind of gave an exemption to a CEQA process, and we allowed jobs to come in because we knew the impact of the area. We knew what this would do. If this area did not get expanded into the redevelopment area, would there be an EIR in this area to have development on that piece of property?
Well, there has been an EIR specifically on this project, which is anticipated in the legislation. For any new project, I think there would be an EIR.
And Mr. Calderon, I mean, I understand that the EIR, if you expand the redevelopment area, you can keep that EIR.
Yes.
If you did not, and you had some sort of project on that piece of property without expanding the redevelopment area, would you have to have a new EIR on that piece of property?
Yes, I believe you'd have to have a new one, right?
Gilbert Levis, Assistant City Manager for City of Downey. This particular site that we're talking about has been studied both at the federal level and at the local level in terms of the National Environmental Protection Act and through CEQA. And this specific use is entitled to go in there. So it has been studied both at the federal and state level.
I see. Talking about the use. Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Mr. Loeb? You all right? All right. Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Bradford?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear as it relates to Howard Jarvis, as they stated, the incentives for this project. Am I clear, Mr. Calderon, that these incentives will only be made available if, in fact, the Tesla plant is built? So we want to make sure that it's no confusion here that we're doing it even if Tesla doesn't go forward. Am I correct?
That is correct.
All right.
And briefly, probably for the city of Downey, I know, as I understood Mr. Calderon's testimony, that there was already some investment made by the city of Downey towards Tesla, but I wasn't sure if that was already the case or, please.
Approximately $7 million, I believe.
The City of Downey has committed funding for this project, and it's contingent upon them opening shop in our
So it's
city.
been committed but not allocated.
That's
It's
correct.
not out of the general fund.
It's allocated. I'm sorry. It has been allocated, and this is the last piece of the puzzle.
So there already is up to $7 million
Yes.
in Tesla's hands, more so to speak. It's already been.
It's committed, yes, and allocated.
Okay. All right. Okay. We do have a motion and a second, I believe.
Should I close or no?
Yes. I just want to make sure that we do. Dixie, we do. Yes. Thank you. Please,
All right.
Mr. Calderon.
Just to just to say that we heard nothing from the Jarvis folks about the 5,000 jobs. They said they need to they need to protect taxpayers, but I would submit to you, you need jobs before you have taxpayers to protect. This bill will actually recoup the city funds from Tesla, I guess, over the long haul, that have been committed. So this is to pay back any taxpayers, and without the bill, the $7 million already committed will be lost. So I think it makes a lot of sense. If we weren't under deadline, we'd be coming through the regular process. We're not avoiding a hearing process. This bill has been heard in housing, and it's been heard here. If it gets out of here, it'll be heard in appropriation. It'll be debated on the floor, and then it'll go over to the Senate and start all over again. So we're going to have plenty of public hearings. The only difference between this and going the regular process is the 24 months it takes to run all the notice and deadlines and the referendum. And, of course, like I said, the referendum, I think, would allow just, Howard Jarvis to come in because they don't like redevelopment agencies anyway, and oppose the project, and we lose the jobs. And that's the reason for the referendum exclusion.
Mr. De La Torre, would you like? All right. We do have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Committee on Appropriations. Smythe.
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Torlakson. Arambula. Bradford. Bradford, aye. Davis.
Aye.
Davis, aye. Knight. Knight, aye. Logue. Logue, aye. Solorio. Solorio, aye. Fong. Fong, aye.
That measure is out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much, members. Thank you.
Mr. Perez, give a second to let the room clear so we can, but go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Perez. And also, just for the committee, there are amendments to add an urgency clause to this measure as well. Sure. So they will be included. So, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 2136 is a tax relief bill intended to assist the people of Imperial County in the wake of the Sierra El Mayor earthquake.
You'll notice a motion and second with support on both sides. So,
I ask for your aye vote.
Excellent.
And I have Bill Doran here.
Well done.
Representing Imperial County.
Well done.
Mr. Chairman,
your
members,
witnesses.
following that, representing Imperial County and the City of Brawley, we're in support.
Thank you. Any witnesses also in support? Please.
Cindy Hillary, Regional Council of Rural Counties, in support.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Neal with the California State Association of Counties, also in support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none. Witnesses in opposition? We have a motion and a second. I don't think you need to close. I think you're all right. Thank you very much. Please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Committee on Revenue and Taxation. Smythe.
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Torlakson. Arambula. Bradford. Bradford, aye. Davis.
Aye.
Davis, aye. Knight. Knight, aye. Logue. Solorio. Solorio, aye. Fong. Fong, aye. Bill's out.
That measure is out. Thank you. Mr. Huffman.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to just
Yeah,
repeat that
should
exercise.
we just substitute the? Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. This is a bill that I think will take a small but important step towards improving the protection of our groundwater supplies in California. And of course, we all know, those of us that work on water issues, how conventional surface water supplies are becoming more and more in demand, more and more uncertain because of any number of factors ranging from user conflicts to environmental issues to the variabilities of climate change. As a result, groundwater is becoming increasingly important. Groundwater is typically the fallback when surface supplies become less important, or less reliable rather. And in years like last year, a critical drought year, groundwater was over 40% of our statewide water supply in California. And yet we don't do nearly enough to protect it. One thing that we clearly need to do, according to the state's own water reports, is to bring forward more information on groundwater recharge areas and to get that information into the hand of local land use planners so that they can take appropriate steps to identify and protect it. And that's where this bill really comes in. It will simply require public water systems to report this information to cities and counties, to map prime groundwater recharge areas, and also require local groundwater agencies as a condition of receiving state funding for groundwater projects to map these areas and have this information on hand. I've been working closely with the opposition, and often when we're working together, the opposition will come to the table and praise the author's efforts and say we want to keep working together. I'm going to praise the opposition's efforts because they've been meeting me in a spirit of good faith, and we are taking some more amendments today to try to help clarify that we're not trying to create some new legal status for these prime recharge areas in state law. We're not trying to tell local officials what they have to do with this information. We're simply acknowledging that these prime recharge areas are too important not to know where they are. And we've got to get that information into the hand of local folks so that they can then make the call on what, if anything, to do to protect them from being paved over or contaminated, et cetera. So with that, I do have Ken Manning, the president of the California Groundwater Coalition, with me, and also Tim Parker, Legislative Committee Chair of Groundwater Resources Association of California.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Gentlemen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Ken Manning, and I'm president of the California Groundwater Coalition. On a day-to-day basis, I act as the chief executive officer for the Chino Basin Water Master, an agency in Southern California that manages groundwater. I work with groundwater 365 days a year. And the members of the California Groundwater Coalition, likewise, up and down the state of California, are practitioners of groundwater management. We think that this bill is an important step in the right direction in terms of getting people to talk to each other. What we've found is in the state of California is there are many groundwater agencies and land use agencies that don't communicate, and decisions are being made without the opportunity of discussing what opportunities could be made out of the pieces of property that are going to be used. This is an effort to get people just to talk to each other, to make sure that that communication takes place. This bill is not intended to predetermine land use. The objective is to make sure that land use agencies' rights are protected and that the agencies who have land use authority are continue to have that land use authority. This is an effort to get people to talk with each other, and the California Groundwater Coalition would urge your support.
Mr. Chairman, members, I am not Tim Parker, but I know
Sorry,
Tim
Duncan,
Parker.
I misidentified you.
Duncan McFetridge on behalf of the Groundwater Resources Association of California. We're co-sponsors of the bill. Strongly support. I can't add anything that these two gentlemen have articulated other than the fact that we're working with the opposition. I think we're nearly there, and we look forward to getting the committee's support for the bill.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Julie McClay for the Santa Clara Valley Water District. We're pleased to support the bill.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Opposition?
Mr. Chairman and members, Steve Cruz on behalf of the California Building Industry Association, and we are in strong opposition to the bill that's in print. And Mr. Huffman sort of beat me to the punch in terms of describing, I think, our negotiations, addressing a good number of our concerns. We have been provided with the mock-up by the author that go a long way towards addressing our fundamental concerns with the bill, which is potential land use restrictions on areas that are defined as prime recharge, and I'll get back to that in a moment, and then with direction to protect those areas and subsequent general plan updates. And so a lot of those sections of the bill dealing with that second half of the equation have been dealt with. We're fine with the identifying these areas and sharing it with the local agencies, but not taking away the local discretion to make decisions on land use. And I think that was, like I said, our primary objective. So we certainly feel that we're almost there. There's a few issues that we want to address primarily with the definition of primary charge areas. We want to make sure that that's something that, one, can't be done already, which I'm understanding more and more that it can't, but also that it's identifiable, science-based, that it's mappable, and that it doesn't necessarily mean that a landowner that has a couple hundred acres of property, that his entire property would be deemed off limits for production, whether it's urban development, housing production, or agricultural production. So that's kind of where we're at. I think we're pretty close, and I appreciate the efforts by the author and the sponsor.
Thank you.
Gail Delahunt.
No, you come on down, so you got room.
Okay. Gail Delahunt with Western Growers Association. In the interest of time, I want to say ditto to Steve's comments and appreciate working with the author.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Danny Merkley with the California Farm Bureau. We have gone a long ways to meet our concerns. We still have some remaining concerns, so we are opposed unless amended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Valerie Nera for the California Chamber of Commerce. We've gone from a hard opposed to a mildly opposed, maybe in the annoyed range. I think we're really close. There's just a few more things that have to be worked out, so we're opposed at this moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds like Homeland Security's threat level,
Yeah,
sort
right.
of like purple.
And for brevity, the League of California Cities is also in that position as well.
Thank you. Any other witnesses? Any tweeners or anyone? Thank you. Questions from the committee? I know we do have a motion in a second. And for the committee, please understand that the bill we're voting on right now still is the one in print. If there are amendments, I know they can be addressed on the floor. So if we do move this bill out, it is likely to look different once it hits the floor than what we're doing, than what we're voting on today. So just keep that in mind. Yes, Mr. Davis.
I wanted to say, Mr. Chair, and with that in mind, we trust the integrity of the author and certainly hope that he will work with the opposition as he's already been doing. And I will support the bill with that understanding and reserve our decision on the floor, but I will support it here with the understanding that you will work out some of those concerns which sound reasonable with the opposition.
I'm quite sure we will. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Solario.
Yeah, just similarly, do look forward to seeing you continue to work with the opposition. I think you've made a lot of headway already, as well as some of these are new terms that need definitions, and all our statutes to a certain extent are just dictionary terms, and so additional help there would be helpful. But I think you've done a lot already, and I know in Orange County we have a very valuable groundwater basin, and if we can manage all our groundwater basins well and not take more water out than we put back in, we'd be in much better shape, as well as it's much easier to maintain and get good advantage out of a groundwater basin rather than having to build other forms of storage facilities. So it's also very cost effective for the locals and for the state. So applaud your leadership on this.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay, we do have a motion in a second. Mr. Huffman.
Respectfully request your aye vote.
Thank you. Could we please call the roll?
The motion is due pass. Smythe?
No.
Smythe, no. Torlakson? Arambula? Bradford? Bradford, aye. Davis? Davis, aye. Knight? Knight, no. Logue? Logue, no. Solorio? Solorio, aye. Fong? Fong, aye.
Okay, bill needs one more vote. It is on call.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. Mr. Swanson.
Mr. Chairman.
Just a second, let the room clear.
Right.
So you have.
Mr. Bradford.
Mr. Swanson.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
like that. Mr. Chairman, AB 1666 is a cleanup measure to a bill that passed this committee and signed by the governor last year. Thank you. AB 1666 firmly established the intent of the Whistleblower Act to apply only to information obtained on a city auditor's whistleblower hotline rather than other hotlines under local government jurisdiction. And AB 1666 also defines waste, fraud, and abuse to ensure that is the only focus of this activity. I will have my witness self-introduce.
Thank you. Please do.
Yes, my name is Paul Prather. I'm a deputy city attorney with the City of San Diego. I'm an advisor to the city auditor who currently runs the San Diego Whistleblower Hotline. We are in support of these changes, and we would ask for your aye votes as well.
Very good. Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Questions? Mr. Swanson.
Thank you. This is a very good government bill, and I ask for your support.
Very good.
It's had bipartisan support in the past, and as it moves forward, I appreciate seeing that again.
Yeah, I think you probably will. Please call the roll.
The motion is due pass. Smythe?
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Torlakson? Arambula? Bradford? Aye. Bradford, aye. Davis?
Aye.
Davis, aye. Knight? Knight, aye. Logue? Logue, aye. Solorio? Solorio, aye. Fong? Bill's out.
That measure is out.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you. Right. That concludes our business. We have several bills on call, and I see we have the rest of the committee showing up. So, all right, we're going to go with bills that are on call in order. First one is item number 4, Assembly Bill 2043 by Mr. Tirico. Current vote is 3-3. Please call the roll.
Torlakson? Torlakson, aye. Arambula? Arambula, aye.
That bill is out. 5-3. Next one is item number 8, AB 2304 by Mr. Huffman. Current vote is 4-3. Please call the roll.
Torlakson? Torlakson, aye. Arambula? Arambula, aye.
That measure is out. 6-3. Item number 10, AB 2509 by Ms. Hayashi. Current vote is 3-3.
Torlakson? Torlakson, aye. Arambula? Arambula, aye. Fong?
That measure is also out. And item number 12, AB 2613 by Mr. Bell. Current vote 3-3.
Arambula? Arambula, aye. Davis?
Item number 12 by Mr. Bell.
Davis, aye. Solorio? Bill's out.
That measure is out as well. That concludes all the bills that we have on call. We will leave the roll open for the next 5 minutes to allow members to add on if they wish. And otherwise, we will see you in a couple weeks.